Okay, so today we are looking at fractions and decimals. So far we have worked with integers, so numbers like 1, 2, 3 and so on. We've been doing place value based on them. We're now going to look at place value in terms of decimals and fractions. Decimals and fractions are numbers which go in between our 1, 2, 3, 4, in between our counting numbers. So 1.5, for example, would be a decimal or a fraction. So what is a decimal number? A decimal number is a number which is less than one whole. So for example, we would have 0.1, 0.2, 0.3 and so on, all the way until 0.9, and then we'd have our whole number after that. These can also be represented as fractions. Again, fractions are numbers which are less than one whole. Fractions are divided up into a denominator and a numerator. So your denominator is the bottom number and your numerator is the top number. The bottom number tells us the total. In other words, how many pieces are we dividing this into? The numerator tells us how many we have out of that total. We'll call this one whole, this circle here. If we were dividing this, let's say it's a pizza, let's say we're dividing this pizza to share between two people, our denominator would be 2, and we would split our whole into 2. Say I had one piece out of those two pieces, that would mean I'd have this area here, which is 1 out of a possible 2. This is a half, 1/2. Let's pretend I have another pizza here, and we're going to divide this into 4 pieces. We're going to say we've got one pizza, we've got 4 people that are sharing it. I'll divide that pizza into 4. So my denominator, which again remember tells us how many pieces we have altogether, our total, our denominator in this case would be 4. There's a total of 4 pieces. Let's say I was being greedy. I'm greedy. I'm going to take 3 pieces of this pizza. Say we're sharing this between 2 people. If I take these 3 pieces, the fraction that I would have would be 3/4, 3 over 4. Remember our numerator here, 3, tells us how many we're taking out of the total. As you can see, these are less than one whole. Remember this pizza, we're going to call that one whole. So where do we use fractions and decimal numbers in real life? Well, we've already discussed some of it. We'd be seeing fractions in dividing up objects. So for example, a cake or pizza, or like number of marbles, number of sweets, that sort of thing. So you'll see it you see fractions in real life in these situations. The main place you'll see fractions in real life is money. And also in measures. So when you want to be very accurate in the length of something, or like how much something weighs, or the volume of water you have in a jug, we would use fractions. So for example, centimeters and millimeters, liters, milliliters. We can become very accurate until we can tell how wide something is, or how heavy something is, or how much volume there is in a jug or a glass by using fractions to get a more accurate measurement. Let's go back to money for a minute. So this obviously is £1. That's one whole pound. It's made up of pennies. It's made up of 100 of these. So in fact, this leads us quite nicely onto partitioning up decimals. This £1 is one whole. That will be in this column here, which you should have seen in the previous video. In fact, you can probably watch that up here. When we go into pennies, we actually go past our decimal point into numbers which are less than one whole. So in money, we only really go to 2 decimal places. We're going to go up to here. So a hundredth, yeah, is 1 penny. Again, remember it's 1 out of a possible 100. So let's say something was 14 pounds and 45 pence. That would be 1 in the tens column and 4 in the ones column. That gives us our 14. You should know that from previous videos already. Now, past our decimal point, we're going into numbers which are less than 1 whole. So 45, that's 45 pennies, right? So that's 4 there and 5 there. 5 hundredths, yeah, so 5 pennies, 5p, plus 40p, 40 and 5 is 45p. And then you have the 14 pounds, which goes into the tens column and the ones column. Okay, so I did prepare a number here earlier that goes to 3 decimal places. Obviously, we know money doesn't go that far. But we've got a number here which we can use. That number is 43.575. Let's start with our integers, because we know them already. Our integers are everything on the left-hand side of the full of the decimal point. So in this case, it's 43. So 43 can be partitioned into 4 tens and 3 ones, which equals 43. If we go past our decimal point on the right-hand side, we're now going into numbers which are less than 1 whole. So every time you move 1 column to the right, the number is 10 times smaller. So this 5 in the tenths column is worth 10 times less than if that 5 were in the ones column. So I'm going to fill this out now. So we have 5 tenths, 7 hundredths and 5 thousandths. So you can see here the TH is quite important. Don't get it confused with the whole numbers on the other side of the decimal point. So let's just lay this one out quickly. So we're going to have 40 plus 3 plus 0.5 plus 0.07 plus 0.005. So if you can see what we've done here, the number of decimal places matches exactly the number of zeros which come after the 1. So for the tenths column, you have 1 0, you have 1 decimal place. Hundredths column, you have 2 zeros there, and you have 2 decimal places. And again, with the thousandths, you have 3 and 3 decimal places there. Let's go on to our exploration stage now. In fact, I'm going to get John to randomly give me a number. 305.475. Okay, let's put this number in place. 305.475. So 3 hundredths, 0 tens and 5 ones, 4 tenths, 7 hundredths and 5 thousandths. So that's going to give us 300. Add 0. Add 5. That gives us our 305. And then we go into our numbers which are less than 1 whole. So we've got 4 in the tenths column. So we're going to add 0.4. Remember, 1 0, 1 decimal place. 2 zeros, 2 decimal places, so 0.07. And then 0.005, 3 zeros in the thousandths after the 1, so 3 decimal places. Okay, so we've laid this number out that John's given us in whole numbers, in integers, and in decimals. But we haven't really looked at how that works in terms of fractions. So we'll do that now. If you look at this column here, the tenths column, you can see it's 1 out of 10. So if there was a 1 in this column, it will be 1 over 10. In this case, we've got a 4. So we know that that's 0.4. Yeah, 1 0, 1 decimal place. If it was a 1, we'd have 1 over 10. But it's a 4. So if we were to change this into a fraction instead of a decimal, we would say it's 4 out of a possible 10. Same with this one. You have 7 hundredths. We know that's 0.07. If it was supposed to be a fraction, we would do 7 out of 100. It's 7 hundredths. And again, this one will be 5 over 1,000, because it's in the thousandths column. If you know how to cancel down or simplify, then you can do that. Don't worry too much for now if you can't. But 4 over 10 becomes 2 over 5. 7 over 100 can't be simplified. And 5 over 1,000 becomes 1 over 200. So that's the end of the session for today. If you struggled with this or with anything else, you can just drop a comment down below and we'll reply to it. And if you struggled with working with fractions and decimals, maybe go back and have a look at how to do partitioning with integers. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.